The explosion was close. Too close. The sound, a sharp crack followed by a deep rumble, made every recruit on the training range at the dirt. Standard procedure. Controlled detonation. Everyone knew it was coming. Everyone had been briefed. It was just a training exercise. Except Private David Martinez didn't hit the dirt with the others. He ran. Not tactically, not strategically, just ran. Arms flailing, breath coming in gasps, eyes wide with pure panic. He made it maybe 30 yards before his legs gave out and he collapsed in the dirt, hyperventilating, tears streaming down his face. The drill instructor, a grizzled staff sergeant named Kowalski, walked over slowly. The other recruits were getting up, dusting themselves off, staring at David. Some looked concerned. Most looked disgusted. Martinez, Kowalski said quietly. Too quietly. That was worse than yelling. What the hell was that? David couldn't speak. His chest was tight, heart hammering, hands shaking. This wasn't the first time. It had happened 3 times in the past 2 weeks. Loud noises, explosions, gunfire. Every time, the same thing. Panic. Complete, overwhelming panic that shut down his brain and made his body move on pure instinct. Fight or flight. And David always chose flight. I'm sorry, Sergeant. I couldn't. Get up, Kowalski ordered. David struggled to his feet, legs still shaking. Martinez, you're not cut out for this. I'm recommending you for discharge. Failure to adapt to military environment. We can't send you to combat. You're a liability. You'll get yourself killed. Worse, you'll get someone else killed. David wanted to argue, wanted to say he could do better, wanted to promise it wouldn't happen again. But he'd already made those promises. After the first panic attack, after the second, after the third, and here he was, again, running from a training explosion that everyone knew was fake. Yes, Sergeant, he whispered. But the discharge didn't happen. Not immediately. Military bureaucracy moved slowly. And while the paperwork wound through the system, David Martinez became a ghost in his own unit. Nobody talked to him. Nobody trained with him. And everyone had the same nickname for him, Rabbit. Hey, Rabbit, you gonna run away from your own shadow today? Careful with that door, Rabbit. It might slam and scare you. I bet Rabbit could win a marathon. He's got so much practice running away. David took it all. What else could he do? They were right. He was terrified of everything. Loud noises sent him into panic mode. The thought of actual combat made him sick to his stomach. At night, he lay in his bunk wondering why he'd even enlisted. His father had been a Marine. Grandfather had fought in Vietnam. David had thought he had that same courage in his blood. Turned out he didn't. The discharge orders were about to be finalized when Lieutenant Morrison intervened. Morrison was the platoon leader, a young officer, only 26, on his first command rotation before deploying. He pulled David into his office one afternoon. Martinez, I've read Sergeant Kowalski's recommendation. I've read the incident reports. 3 panic attacks in controlled training environments. Morrison leaned back in his chair. But I've also read your other evaluations. Your marksmanship scores are excellent. Your tactical knowledge is solid. Your physical fitness is above average. Everything except the panic attacks says you could be a good soldier. Sir, I appreciate that, but the sergeant's right. I'm not cut out for combat. I'm scared. All the time. Everyone's scared, Martinez. Not like me, sir. I run. I can't control it. I just run. Morrison was quiet for a moment. You know what courage is, Private? Acting without fear, sir. Wrong. Courage is acting despite fear. You think all those Medal of Honor recipients weren't scared? They were terrified. But they did it anyway. The question isn't whether you're scared. The question is whether you can function despite being scared. I can't, sir. I've proven that 3 times. In training, where you knew you were safe, where your brain knew there was no real danger. That's different from combat. Sometimes, when things are actually life or death, the brain responds differently. The fear becomes something else, becomes fuel instead of a cage. David didn't believe that. How could fear make you stronger? Fear made him run, made him weak. "I'm deploying to Afghanistan in 2 weeks," Morrison continued. "I need soldiers. I'm not going to discharge you. I'm bringing you with us. 1 deployment. If you can't handle it, I'll personally process your discharge when we get back. But I think you deserve the chance to find out who you really are when it matters." David wanted to refuse, wanted to beg for the discharge. But there was something in Morrison's voice. Not pity, not mockery, just belief. Someone actually believed he might have something worth finding inside him. "Yes, sir," David heard himself say. The flight to Afghanistan was the longest of David's life. 23 hours of thinking about all the ways he could die, all the ways he could fail, all the ways he could get someone else killed because he froze up or ran away at the critical moment. The other soldiers didn't talk to him. Rabbit the coward was coming to war. Great. Just what they needed. They arrived at Forward Operating Base Salerno in September 2012. The base was a sprawling collection of concrete barriers, canvas tents, and dust. So much dust. The mountains of eastern Afghanistan rose in the distance, beautiful and hostile. David spent his first week pulling perimeter guard duty, cleaning latrines, and trying not to have panic attacks when helicopters flew overhead or explosions echoed from distant valleys. And then, on his 8th day in country, they got the call. A convoy had hit an IED about 3 kilometers from the base. Multiple casualties. Possible ambush. QRF, Quick Reaction Force, was spinning up for immediate deployment. Morrison was leading it. And because David was technically part of the platoon, he was going. Kowalski pulled him aside before they loaded into the vehicles. "Listen, Rabbit, if you panic out there, if you freeze up, you stay in the vehicle. You hear me? Don't try to be a hero. Don't get anyone killed trying to prove you're not what everyone knows you are." David nodded. His hands were already shaking. His heart was already racing. And they hadn't even left the base yet. The convoy raced down the dirt road toward the IED site. 8 vehicles, 40 soldiers. David sat in the back of a MRAP, gripping his rifle, trying to breathe. In through the nose, out through the mouth. In through the nose, out through the mouth. The breathing exercises they taught him. They weren't working. They arrived at the blast site. The lead vehicle from the original convoy was a smoking ruin. Bodies, or pieces of them, were scattered around the crater. The rest of the convoy had taken cover behind their vehicles, returning fire at Taliban positions in the hills. The air was thick with gunfire, shouting, and the smell of burning metal and flesh. Dismount. Defensive positions. Morrison was yelling orders. The soldiers piled out of the vehicles, taking cover, returning fire. David stayed frozen in his seat. Couldn't move. Couldn't think. This was it. Real combat. People dying. Bullets everywhere. "Martinez, move." Kowalski was screaming at him. David couldn't. His legs wouldn't work. He was going to die right here, in this vehicle, paralyzed by fear. And then he heard it. A voice. Weak. Coming from near the destroyed vehicle. "Help, someone help." A soldier. Still alive. Wounded. Calling for help. And nobody was going to him because the Taliban fire was too heavy. Going out there was suicide. David's brain did something strange. Instead of shutting down completely, it split. Part of him was still terrified, shaking, screaming internally. But another part, a part he didn't know existed, went cold, calm, almost detached, like he was watching himself from outside his own body. He grabbed his rifle, opened the door, and ran. Not away from the danger, toward it. Bullets kicked up dirt around him. He could hear them cracking through the air, could feel the displacement as they passed close enough to touch. But he kept running, reached the destroyed vehicle, found the wounded soldier, a sergeant, both legs mangled, bleeding heavily, barely conscious. "I got you," David said. His voice sounded strange to his own ears. Calm, steady. "I got you." He grabbed the sergeant under the arms and started dragging. The man screamed. David kept dragging, back toward the QRF vehicles. 50 meters. Bullets everywhere. David's mind was oddly quiet. No panic. No hyperventilating. Just focus. Get this man to safety. That's all that matters. He made it. Pulled the sergeant behind cover. Medics rushed over immediately, started working. David stood there, hands covered in blood, breathing hard but not panicking, not running. Kowalski stared at him. Martinez, what the hell was that? I don't know, Sergeant. That was the stupidest, bravest thing I've ever seen. You just ran through a kill zone, alone, to get one guy. David looked back at the blast site. More wounded soldiers were visible. Trapped. Taking fire. Nobody else was going. Too dangerous. Too suicidal. There's more, David heard himself say. Negative. We need air support before. David was already running. Back into the kill zone. This wasn't courage. This was still terror. Every step he took, his body screamed at him to turn around, to run away, to save himself. But there were people dying, and he was the only one apparently stupid enough to try. He reached another wounded soldier, grabbed him, dragged him back, took fire, didn't get hit. Luck. Didn't matter. Back to cover. Medics grabbed the wounded man. David turned around, ran again, 6 times. 6 times David Martinez ran into that kill zone. 6 times he pulled a wounded soldier to safety. On the 7th attempt, Taliban fire was so heavy he had to abort halfway, diving behind the destroyed vehicle. He stayed there for 20 minutes, pinned down, waiting for air support. When Apache helicopters finally arrived and suppressed the Taliban positions, David made his last run, dragged the final wounded soldier to safety. 8 total. 8 soldiers who'd been written off. All alive because Rabbit the Coward kept running into gunfire. When the firing finally stopped and medevac helicopters landed to take the wounded, David collapsed. Not from injuries, from pure exhaustion, and from the adrenaline finally wearing off. His hands started shaking again. The panic came flooding back. He threw up, started hyperventilating. Morrison knelt beside him. Martinez, look at me. Look at me. You saved 8 men today. 8. Do you understand that? David couldn't speak, could barely breathe. The fear he'd pushed aside during the rescue was hitting him all at once. Delayed panic attack. Worse than any he'd had in training. You're having a panic attack right now, Morrison said calmly. And that's okay, because you already did the impossible. You can panic now. You've earned it. The medics gave David something to calm him down, loaded him onto a helicopter with the wounded. At the field hospital, a psychologist talked to him, diagnosed him with acute stress reaction, recommended rest, observation, possible medical discharge for psychological reasons. But word of what David had done had already spread through the base. The kid they called Rabbit, the coward who ran from training explosions, had just run into live fire 6 times, saved 8 soldiers, alone. The nickname didn't go away, but it changed. Soldiers started coming up to David, shaking his hand. Rabbit, you're the craziest son of a bitch I've ever seen. Rabbit saved my life today. Rabbit's got balls of steel. David didn't feel like he had balls of steel. He'd been terrified, was still terrified, had panic attacks at night, reliving those moments of running through gunfire. But Morrison had been right about one thing. David could function despite the fear. When it mattered, when lives were on the line, some part of him could push through. He stayed in country, kept serving, and 3 months later, it happened again. A village outside Jalalabad. Intelligence said Taliban were using it as a staging area. Morrison's platoon was tasked with clearing it. David was there, still Rabbit, still had panic attacks during training exercises and loud noises back on base. But when the bullets started flying for real, that cold, calm part of his brain took over. The village clearing went sideways fast. Taliban had fortified positions, heavy weapons. The platoon was taking casualties. And worse, there were civilians in the village, families, children, caught in the crossfire. We need to pull back. Kowalski was yelling. This is too hot. We're going to lose people. Morrison was making the tactical calculation. Stay and fight, lose soldiers. Pull back, Taliban escape, but soldiers survive. The math was clear. Then David saw them. A family, 4 children, 2 adults, huddled in a building that was being shot to pieces. The walls wouldn't hold. They'd be killed. All of them. David didn't ask permission, didn't wait for orders. Just moved, ran toward the building. Taliban saw him, focused fire on him. David made it inside. The family was screaming, terrified. David couldn't speak Pashto. Didn't matter. He pointed to the door, pointed to himself, gestured, "Follow me." They didn't move. Too scared. Taliban rounds were punching through the walls. David grabbed the nearest child, a girl maybe 6, and ran. Not away from danger. Toward safety. Toward where the American lines were. The family, seeing their child being taken, followed. All 6 of them. David ran. Bullets everywhere. One grazed his leg. He barely felt it. Kept running. Got the family to American positions. Safe. Turned around. More civilians were trapped in other buildings. For the next 6 hours, David Martinez ran. Back and forth. Into Taliban fire. Out of Taliban fire. Pulling civilians to safety. He couldn't tell you how many times. Couldn't tell you how many people. He was just moving. Reacting. That cold, calm part of his brain running the show while the terrified part screamed in the background. When the battle finally ended, when air support arrived and drove the Taliban back, David collapsed again. Same as before. Shaking. Vomiting. Panic attack. Couldn't control it. But this time, the medics counted. Counted the people David had pulled from a village. 8 soldiers he'd saved 3 months ago. Today, 84 civilians. Men, women, children, all alive because Rabbit kept running into the fire. 92 people total. 92 lives saved by the soldier everyone said would get people killed. The Medal of Honor ceremony was held at the White House 6 months later. David stood in his dress uniform, hands shaking slightly. They always shook when he was nervous, when there was no actual danger. The President of the United States read the citation. For conspicuous gallantry and intrepidity at the risk of his life above and beyond the call of duty, Private David Martinez repeatedly exposed himself to intense enemy fire to rescue wounded soldiers and trap civilians. Over the course of his deployment, Private Martinez personally rescued 92 individuals from certain death, demonstrating extraordinary courage and selfless service. David barely heard it. He was thinking about the panic attacks he still had, the therapy sessions, the nightmares, the way loud noises still made him jump. He wasn't cured, wasn't suddenly brave. He was still scared, still had to fight his own brain every single day. But Morrison had been right. Courage wasn't the absence of fear. It was acting despite fear. After the ceremony, a young soldier approached David. Couldn't have been more than 19. "Sir, I just wanted to say, I have panic attacks too. Started after my first deployment. I thought that meant I couldn't be a soldier anymore. But seeing what you did, it gives me hope that you can be scared and still be brave." David looked at this kid, saw himself 2 years ago, terrified, convinced fear made him weak. "Listen," David said, "I'm not going to lie to you. The fear doesn't go away. I still have panic attacks, still see therapists, still shake when I'm scared. But I learned something important. Being afraid doesn't make you a coward. Running away from danger doesn't make you a coward. You know what makes you a coward? Not trying. Giving up before you even know what you're capable of. But you ran toward danger. You're a hero. I'm not a hero. I'm just someone who was more afraid of living with regret than I was of dying. Those people needed help. I could help. So I did, even though I was terrified. Especially because I was terrified. The fear made me faster, made me focus, turned into something useful instead of something paralyzing." The young soldier nodded. "Thank you, sir. That helps." David Martinez served 2 more years before medical discharge. Not because of cowardice, Because of PTSD, the panic attacks never fully went away, but he'd learned to manage them, learned that having them didn't define who he was. After discharge, he became a counselor, working with veterans struggling with PTSD, anxiety, panic disorders, helping them understand what he'd learned. Mental health struggles don't make you weak. They make you human. And humans are capable of extraordinary things, especially when they're terrified. The nickname Rabbit stuck, but it didn't mean what it used to. Soldiers would introduce him. This is Rabbit. He's the fastest runner in the Army. He ran into gunfire 92 times, saved 92 lives. Called him Rabbit because he never stopped moving, never stopped fighting. Fastest rescue operator we ever saw. David would smile when he heard that. Let them believe it was about speed. But he knew the truth. They'd called him Rabbit because he ran from danger. And yeah, eventually he ran toward it instead. But that didn't erase the fear, didn't erase the panic attacks, didn't make him suddenly fearless. It just meant he'd learned that fear and courage aren't opposites. They're partners. You can't have one without the other. Real courage is being absolutely terrified and doing it anyway. Not because you're not scared, but because something matters more than your fear. At a veterans conference in 2019, David gave a speech that would be shared thousands of times online. He stood at the podium, hands shaking slightly, they always shook, and told a story. Not the Medal of Honor version, the real version. I had my first panic attack in basic training, he began. A controlled explosion. Everyone knew it was coming. Everyone hit the dirt except me. I ran 30 yards, collapsed, crying, hyperventilating. My drill instructor recommended me for discharge. Said I was a liability. Said I'd get people killed. And you know what? He was right to be concerned. I was terrified. I am terrified. Still, every day. The crowd was silent. This wasn't the usual hero speech. They called me Rabbit as an insult because I ran from danger, because I was a coward, and I believed them. I thought having panic attacks meant I couldn't be a soldier, couldn't be brave, couldn't serve. I was ready to quit, ready to accept that I was just broken. David paused, took a breath. His hands were shaking. He didn't hide it. Then I deployed to Afghanistan. And I found out something important. I found out that I could be absolutely terrified, shaking, crying, vomiting, having full panic attacks, and still act, still move, still help. The fear didn't go away. It never goes away. But when people needed help, when lives were on the line, I found out I could push through it. Not because I was brave, but because I was more afraid of not trying than I was of dying. He held up his Medal of Honor. This doesn't mean I'm not afraid anymore. Doesn't mean I don't have panic attacks. Doesn't mean I'm cured. I still see therapists, still take medication, still have nightmares, still struggle. But I learned that courage isn't the absence of fear. Courage is being scared out of your mind and doing it anyway. It's functioning despite the terror. It's acknowledging that you're terrified and moving forward regardless. To anyone struggling with anxiety, panic attacks, PTSD, or any mental health issue, you are not weak. You are not broken. You are not a coward. You are human. And humans are capable of incredible things especially when they're falling apart inside.